I've told a number of tales of Harold Sigurdsson, and this is one of them. But this tale does not begin in Norway, in Harold's kingdom. It begins in England. There were two great earls, sons of the counselor of King Edward the Confessor Godwin. They were named. One of them was also named Harold, and the other was named Tostig. Now, Harold Godwinson controlled the treasury, while Tostig Godwinson controlled the armies. When Edward the Confessor died, Harold Godwinson was elected the next king of England. Tostig contested this and was removed from his position and stripped of his titles by his brother. This made him very angry, of course. So he went throughout the northern lands to seek a way to overthrow his brother. Eventually, his travels brought him to Norway when he spoke with Harold Sigurdsson. Their conversation turned to Harold's war with the Danes. Tostig said, "I wonder if it is true, as I have often heard it said in England, that your kinsman Magnus sent word to Edward the Confessor that he, Magnus, was entitled to the throne of England." Sigurdsson said, "If he was entitled to it, then why did he not claim it? Why do you not rule Denmark, as your kinsman Magnus has before you?" Harold snorted angrily. "The Danes do not need to boast to us Norwegians. Many a mark we have left on these kinsmen of yours." Tostig said, "You do not need to answer. I will do it for you. Your kinsman Magnus ruled Denmark because the chieftains of that land wanted him as their king. He did not attempt to take England because he knew that the earls of England preferred Edward as the king. If you desired England, I could arrange it so that many of the earls would come out on your side. As to my brother Harold, I lack only the royal title. All men know that there is no greater king in all the northern lands than you. And I find it strange that you will war for 10 years to take Denmark, but will not take England when it is yours for the having." Harold considered what Tostig said, and decided that much of it was true. He resolved to take England. He rose a half levy of the Norwegian men and ships, and he bade his wife, Elisif, Yaroslave's daughter, goodbye, and then he and Earl Tostig left for England. There were 200 ships in that fleet. They ravaged up the coast and made landing at Pembroke. They went up the River Ouse and took the fortress there. Now, there were two great earls in that part of England at that time. Their names were Morkera and Valfia. Now, these two earls rode out to meet Harold, who had arranged his line along the side of the river. The weakest and most uncertain part lay just in front of a swamp. Morkera charged. That part of the line fell back. The English thought that Norwegians were fleeing, so they pursued them, but then the bulk of Harold's army came in to crush the English. Morkera lost his life in that fight, and so many of the Englishmen were slain that the Norwegians could walk across the swamp dry-shod. Valfjolf fled south. Harold then proceeded up to the city of York, which surrendered to him. He then returned to his ships in good cheer. The next day was a very hot one, with warm weather. Harold and his men left their armor in their ships and rode up to York to apportion titles and split booty. But they were a little taken aback when there was a great army between them and the city. Harold summoned Tostig to him. He said, "Who is it that you think is this army in front of us?" Tostig said, "Perhaps it is the earls coming out on our side, but I think it is rather more likely they mean great trouble for us." Harold Sigurdsson agreed, and he and his men made ready for battle. He was riding his stallion, inspecting the line, when the horse buckled underneath him and threw him. He was unhurt. He sprang to his feet and said, "A fall on a trip betokens luck." But in the other army, the leader saw this and leaned over to one of his counselors and said, "Who is that big man in the blue tunic whose horse just threw him?" The man replied, "That is Harold Sigurdsson, the Norwegian king." The leader nodded. "A big man and stately, but it seems rather likely his good luck has deserted him." 10 riders came out from the English army. They hailed the Norwegians. "Is Tostig brother to the king of England among you?" Tostig stepped forward. "There is no reason to hide myself. I am here." "Your brother, Harold Godwinson, sends you greetings." He offers you peace and Northumberland. He would give you a third of his kingdom rather than fight you to death. Tostig called back, that is a very generous offer. And if it were made last winter, many men who were dead now would not be, and England would stand on much firmer feet. But what do you offer my friend and ally, Harold Sigurdsson? The rider said, the King of England has an offer of land for him as well. 6 feet, or as more, as he is taller than other men. Tostig called back, go now and tell Harold Godwinson to prepare for battle. Never let it be said that old Tostig would betray an ally. And we are resolved to take England here, or else die trying. The riders returned to the army. Harold Sigurdsson leaned over to Tostig and said, who was that man who spoke so well? Tostig said, that was my brother, King Harold Godwinson. Too late we were told of that. He had ridden so far from his army we could have seized and killed him before his men knew of his fall. Tostig nodded. I knew this, and I knew that if I revealed who my brother was, I would be the death of him. When he offered me peace and so much power besides, I resolved that I would rather he be the death of me than I of him. Harold Sigurdsson considers the other army. He was a small man, but he stood proudly with his stirrups. And then he spoke this verse. Framgången ver I Vikingen, Brunhilda ser underblareja. Hjalmar spina, hefgate kvinnan, nu lik skrud vort ad skipning. Forward we stride to fight bravely, our chests bared against the blue steel swords. Their helmets shine, I have not mine. Below in the ships lie our armor. Then he said, no, that was too poorly composed. Let me speak another. Krypten ver förvåpna, våldtägs, brocken äggi, svå vad hild ad hjaldri haldorf, ibog skaldar. Hatt but meg tharnatost, menskord bera for them, plakar is og hausar, jonstoven uni mal. With your shield find shelter, shining lady told me, here I cannot hide in hollows of my ship's wall. Well, this gold-ringed goddess gave you these words also. Hold your head up proud and high when blades are clashing. The English rode in a hard charge onto the Norwegian line. But the Norwegians held. The English fell back when they saw they could do no damage. And then the Norwegians charged after the English and broke their shield castle. But then the bulk of the English army came in to flank the Norwegians, pressing them hard with spear shots and arrows thrusts. When Harold Sigurdsson saw what was happening, he ran in advance of the line, and then he grew so battle-mad that he swung his sword with both hands. No Englishman could stand against him. Anyone who faced him fell or fled. But then an arrow struck him into the throat, and that was his death. He fell, as did all of the Norwegians who ran in front of the line, and then the rest of the army crushed the rest of the Norwegians, and Tostig got his wish, and his brother was the death of him. And thus fell Harold Sigurdsson, the last Viking king.